There's a dynamic that's going on in the Middle East of what I would refer to as two outmodeds clashing with each other. An outmoded form of politics and economy from the West, in other words, empire or imperialism, clashing with an outmoded form of politics and ideology in countries like Iraq and Iran and so on, which is Islamic fundamentalism. Neither one of them really offer a future to the people either in this country or in the Middle East, in my view. And yet, in their clash, they actually reinforce each other. A U.S. attack on Iran, and if Iran responded or stood up in any way, would greatly fuel this. Many millions of people, even secular people, would feel compelled to support Islamic fundamentalism simply to oppose this horror that they're seeing coming from the United States. And it's my view that we have to create a third way. I mean, one of the things I think is so important about people in this country resisting is that it sets an example for people across the world that it's possible to have an alternative to imperialism that is not simply based on religious fundamentalism. I understand that this system that we live in is riven with contradictions, that it's in motion and that it may seem all-powerful, but has very many fault lines within it. And those can erupt with very little warning. In Iran in 1978, Jimmy Carter said Iran, the Shah, was an island of stability in a troubled world. A year later, he was fleeing for his life, and a quarter of the population, 10 million people, were in the streets protesting. This came from nowhere, but it seemed to come from nowhere, but it came from these deep fissures and fault lines, contradictions within the existing order. So it is possible for a big resistance and a revolutionary or progressive movement to come forward. So I think that creating that kind of resistance in this country, starting with driving out this Bush regime and repudiating its program, impeaching Bush and Cheney, I think would open up an enormous amount of political space for people all around the world, including in Iran.
Although the current regime in Iran is undemocratic, if we truly believe in democracy, we must let the Iranian people change their own country over time. As a test of fairness, we might imagine that Iran invaded and occupied Canada and Mexico and had aircraft carriers sitting in the Caribbean. Imagine then if Iran had the power to label the US the axis of evil and cut us off from the rest of the world, and then threatened to attack us if we didn't stop generating nuclear power. What if Iran had overthrown the US government 50 years ago and installed a dictator friendly to Iranian interests, who kept it in power for 25 years? At that point, imagine that Christian fundamentalists, who currently represent about a third of the US, took power and began ruling under church law, followed by an unprovoked invasion by Canada, supported by Iran and ignored by the UN, in which it nearly destroyed the US. Would it be possible to imagine Iran as liberators? Would Iran be justified in attacking if the US government helped Christian fundamentalists in Canada to take up resistance? Would it be justified to hate and fear all Christians because of the ones that took and abused power in this context? This is not about good guys and bad guys. Both the American and Iranian governments are working against the interests of the people. But the deadly game of chicken was begun by the US, and the US has the power to end it. We should look at our current policies and actions against Iran, look at some better options, and figure out a way to change the minds of the people running our government and prevent another criminal enterprise that will cost many more lives. It has been done in the past, and if people take action, it can be done again.
My name is Sahar Driver. I'm an Iranian American living in the Bay Area. I'm in the doctoral program in a post-colonial anthropology program.
My name is Mitchell Plitnick. I was born in New York City, grew up there. I live in Alameda, California, and I am the Director of Education and Policy for Jewish Voice for Peace.
My name is Jim Haber. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been helping run a soup kitchen for the last 21 years, full-time for 13, providing service as well as advocacy and organizing.
My name is Bob Gould. I grew up in the Bronx, and for the last 30 years I've lived in San Francisco. I work at Kaiser Hospital in San Jose as a pathologist, where I've worked there since 1981. I'm also, since 1989, the president of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility.
My name's Antonia Yuhas, and I live in San Francisco. I'm an activist and an author. I'm a fellow with Oil Change International, a visiting scholar with the Institute for Policy Studies, and I am the author of a book called The Bush Agenda: Invading the World One Economy at a Time.
My name's David Glick. I live in Fairfax, California, a small town in Marin County. I work as a psychotherapist. I've been doing that for about 30 years, and I spend a lot of time doing political activism of different kinds around social justice and peace issues. And in my spare time, I write poetry.
My name is Majid Barada, born in Tehran, Iran. I've been here in the United States last 35 years, and for last 28 years I've been a U.S. citizen. My profession is civil and earthquake engineering that spans over 26 years.
I'm Larry Everest. I'm from Berkeley, California. I've been covering the Middle East and Central Asia for over 25 years for Revolution newspaper and other publications, and I'm the author of Oil, Power, and Empire, Iraq, and the U.S. Global Agenda, and other books.
My name is Mike Valuva. I'm an attorney. I'm in private practice at Walnut Creek. I am also counsel to the Western States Legal Foundation, which is a peace and environmental foundation based in Oakland, California.
My name is Shahab Laegi. I'm originally from Iran. I immigrated to the United States about 15 years ago, and I've been a citizen for past 3.5 years. I'm an engineer. I'm a software engineer. I live in Redwood City, California. It's in the Bay Area, and that's it.